It's time for Keep On Talkin' Live. I'm Tom Kyrk, your host for the evening, and we're going to be gathering around here the counter of knowledge, sharing some thoughts, ideas, doing a little bit of table trucking as we do each week. We're joined with a couple of our originals tonight. Granny and Jerry Fritz is joining with us to start off the hour. Tonight, we're going to be talking infrastructure. As we go around the country as drivers, we see all kinds of problems out there. We see construction zones, this problem, that problem that we have to deal with. And throughout the night, if you know of a way, for example, if there's a construction zone or maybe a real rough stretch of road and you have a way to get around it that you would like to share, I'll kind of start off on that. If you're going on 81 through Virginia, and whenever there's an accident or construction zones, Route 11 is oftentimes a good way to get around a lot of those problems. It runs parallel to it. As with everything, just double check for your load and situation that you're going to be able to get through there. But, these are some tips and tricks we're going to be talking tonight, but we're also going to be talking about some of the problems that are going around the country. I don't know if anyone has been watching the news lately, but they've been putting in a new bridge project down in the Corpus Christi area, and it might have a small problem. They're building it. They're getting ready to put on more bridge decking and a whole bunch of other things for this bridge, and they haven't been able to do anything since June because the bridge inspectors said we need to get all the construction workers off because it could fall down. There's design defects, there's building defects, there's at least 5 major issues on it, not the least of which is when they were building parts of the bridge, it got damaged with the cranes they were using to build the bridge. So talk about a mess. And, that's some of the things we're going to be talking about tonight, ways that drivers can get more involved in their local communities, their state, national stage to try and bring attention to these problems we deal with every day because it's getting worse and worse all the time. We got a few other news headlines we may throw in from time to time tonight as well. It has to deal with trucking and infrastructure. So Terry, Jerry, welcome to the show. Actually, we're going to be different tonight. Terry, we're going to start off with you.
Oh, me?
No, Terry, Granny.
Oh, Terry. Okay.
Hi, guys. How are you?
We're doing good. How are you doing tonight?
Just got parked for the night in St. Cloud, Minnesota. So, gonna cook up some dinner and just relax.
Hey, cooking up dinner and relaxing is always a good thing. I know you've been out there driving for a number of years. If you think back to when you first started driving truck and look at things now, would you say the roads are about the same? Getting better, getting worse?
Are you talking about literally the roads or just being out here?
Well, let's focus more on the roads. Let's focus more on the roads and the infrastructure, and indirectly that can have to do with the drivers because I was talking to a friend earlier tonight who couldn't make it because he's out in Montana tonight and doesn't have cell service. So there's another infrastructure issue. But and he's saying he doesn't know how us East Coast drivers do it with the rough roads, all the traffic and things like that because there's too many cars and not enough space for it. So really, when it comes to that kind of stuff, what are some of the things that you're seeing? And, do you think it's getting better or worse?
I think both, honestly. Okay. When I started driving in 1987, I started in a cab over and oh my gosh, my dog is going to bark. Please forgive me, guys.
Not a problem.
If you see somebody, she might bark. And we all know the cab overs are rougher to begin with. To ride. And this is the old school cab overs. You're sitting on the doghouse kind of deal, And I remember I had maybe been driving 6 months and I was going across 70 in Indiana, which is one of the worst to this day roads to drive on for anything, any vehicle. It's horrific.
Yeah.
And I got so frustrated, Tom, I'm going to try to say this nicely, which is not normally how I work, but being a female, I have body parts that tend to not like bumps. Okay? It can be painful. Yes, I remember one night I was so frustrated. Like, it was so bumpy. Things were falling out of compartments, and I was falling out of compartments, and I just pulled over, parked, and cried. I mean, I was that frustrated. I was going to quit trucking that night. Seriously, I was that mad at the road. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. I was so mad. And I think the difference now, our roads are better, the actual roads, but I do think that the construction zones are being milked to no end. Back then, it seemed like when they were going to do a stretch of road, they got on it, they did it, and they moved on. There is a stretch outside of Minneapolis where I run all the time, and it's been under construction for 4 years. They haven't done hardly anything. That, I think, is a huge hindrance for us. It seems like they're taking longer and longer and milking that clock. And I know that's kind of rude of me to say, but, it is what it is.
I mean, there's definitely that appearance. I mean, there's several construction projects that are going out here around the Philadelphia region that seems like they've been going on for 2, 3, 4 years. And you're like, when are they ever going to end? And anybody who's traveled around that US 1 PA Turnpike extension heading over to Jersey, they'll notice that it's been, under construction for quite a long time, ripped up, a mess. And I never thought it'd be done. And I hadn't been on it for about a month. And I could be wrong, but they may have it done by early fall. It was like all of a sudden they're like, oops, we got to get this done. Maybe it's so they can make a construction bonus. Who knows what it is? But it was like, and you can tell where they've been working on and moving around. But all of a sudden, it was just like overnight, things were getting done. So, and maybe
one of the other things I noticed. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Oh,
I was just going to say, one of the other things I noticed different, I was just thinking about it the other day, actually, and it may just be me, but it seems like when they do road construction and they narrow us down to one lane or part of one lane and a shoulder, they're encroaching more and more, and I see a lot more minor incidents, like rubbing the guardrail, knocking over barrels. They're getting you know what I mean? The lanes of travel that they're allowing us are a lot more narrow than they used to. And I can't tell you how many times in the last 10 years I've seen a trailer scrape a Jersey wall or, knock down some barrels, because there really just isn't the room anymore in some of these places. One of my regular runs out of our yard in North Dakota, they're doing, and they shut down. Our only stop in between two major cities is one rest area. And they've had one of them shut down for I don't even know how long, and going through there, you literally, it's a 65 through there, I think, and you have to drop down to like 40 to safely maneuver some of those little bends and not take out a wall. It's ridiculous. You have like 4 inches on each side of your truck.
And that's definitely a problem. And I believe there is supposed to be, I want to say it's a 10-foot minimum in those construction zones, but sometimes it seems like it's far, far less than that.
They have a broken tape measure. Their tape measure must be broken.
Well,
in some of these places.
Okay, I'm going to say it. A guy measured it, and we all know the joke about men, and we just won't go any further than that. But a guy must have measured it. But the other thing I've also noticed too, with a lot of those barrels, I swear they have to have a drunken sailor putting those things out, because if they're in a straight line. If they're in a straight line. But the other thing I'm noticing too, and I'll get your opinion on this. We're going to have to go to a break here in a few minutes. So we'll actually bring in Jerry and Ken Freeman here after the break. But do you think, like I said, do you think that the barrels and some of that stuff do seem more crooked now? But the other thing I've also noticed is it seems like a lot of trailers are not in alignment and they're off tracking to one side or the other more than in the past.
Dog tracking. Yeah.
Or dog tracking. I've heard it called off tracking, dog tracking, dog legging, whatever term you want to use, because there's a bunch of them out there. Do you think that could be some of what's going on?
It could be, but honestly, I would attribute it more towards dumb drivers, like careless drivers. I would I don't know, it must have been 4 or 5 years ago. There was a construction zone in Wisconsin, and the limit was still 70 through there. And it was one lane, and traffic was hauling tail, and a truck kept swerving back and forth and like almost hitting things. Well, then he hit a barrel, and I had to come to a dead stop because he left it right in the middle of the lane. And I think it's more just that they're not slowing down enough. I see trucks flying through construction zones and cars, of course. But what gets me is what a lot of these new drivers don't get is when it says trucks stay left lane only through construction. So they do that because a lot of times the right lane isn't strong enough to handle the weight of our trucks. They've done something to it where there may be a soft spot or a low spot. And these idiots, I'm sorry, I'll talk nice. These drivers either, I don't know if they can't read, don't want to read, or just don't care. But it's drivers like that are making it more difficult for us out here where they're buckling down harder on everything. To me, is careless driving.
Well,
it really is. And
you know,
maybe
like, Mary,
I'm hardcore on drivers.
We're drivers here, and you know, we can call them what they are: idiots, morons. You know, we do try not to call, you know, anybody on the phone other names, but in a case like this, you know what? Let's call them what they are: idiots. You know what I mean? And things like that. It's
so. Like, it's almost like they think our schedule doesn't matter. Theirs is the only one that does, so they can break the law. And you know, it's like stupid on their part because there may be a soft spot in that right lane, which is why the sign is up, and they're going to end up losing their truck. And then what? Then we're sitting there for 8 hours.
Yeah, let me finish up something here real quick before we go to a break. I do think some of the problem is they don't put up the signs adequately enough and soon enough to get trucks in the left lane. Or whatever lane it may be, because I've been in situations where the cars are not letting us over, even though all the signs are saying it, and the cars are getting mad at us and doing this, that, and the other thing. So I think there's a lack of education to the public why we're in those lanes. And then secondly, I think they need to do a much better job on the signage and things like that, particularly in the zones where they move you from the left lane to the right lane and back again. They need to do a lot better on that. But we need to take a quick break here. We'll be back right after these messages. Stay tuned and join us here at the Counter of Knowledge. We'll be right back.
Truckers Life Radio from TFC Global with your host, Ron Frazier, every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. On the show, Ron interviews guests to help inform professional drivers just like you about the importance of things like human trafficking to sex addiction to how to overcome the impossible odds on the way to success. Every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Finding the right healthcare plan and insurance agent can be a challenge. Truck driving can be a dangerous job, and drivers expose themselves to unique health risks. Health insurance is an expensive but necessary expense for truck drivers. It helps protect them from unexpected high medical costs. Although truck drivers should have a health plan, many don't. Some trucking companies offer health plans for truck drivers, but if you're an owner-operator or an independent contractor, you might have to find your own health insurance policy. The Truckers Network proudly partners with the Health Plan Partner to help our members learn about the options they have for health insurance. The Health Plan Partner is dedicated to helping members of the Truckers Network find and learn about what's available to them in the marketplace. Since 1985, the Health Plan Partner has helped their clients figure out the health insurance maze we're in. Here are 6 tips from the Health Plan Partner for finding the right health plan and agent for truck drivers. Review your options with an experienced agent that specializes in health plans and can guide you in the right direction, even if it's not a plan they offer. Determine your budget. There are options for any budget, but the adage is true: you get what you pay for. So beware. Have a list of your doctors, medications, and any health history. Some plans do require a health history. Review your current plan annually if you have one to see if there are better options and rates available. Plans can change constantly. Have the plans explained to you in detail and ask a lot of questions and role-play various situations. Quite a few times we only find out what the plan doesn't cover when we need it. Again, find an agent you feel comfortable with. You need to be able to trust them and call for guidance and questions anytime. With over 25 years of experience, Health Plan Partner wants to help truckers find the right health insurance plan.
Front Lane introduces Impulse, the world's first collision alert system for the driver behind you when you have to brake hard. Impulse uses ultra-bright pulsing red LEDs to alert drivers behind you who might not be giving their full attention to the road. Using amazing accelerometer technology and a battery that will last for years, Impulse installs in minutes, fits nearly any vehicle, and never requires additional wiring. Drivers react 50% faster, helping to protect you and your passengers. Learn more by visiting www.frontlane.com/impulse. That's www.frontlane.com/impulse. Approved by all 50 states. Impulse by Front Lane.
And we're back here on Keep on Talkin' Live. I'm your host, Tom Kyrk, as we gather each week here at the Counter of Knowledge for some table trucking. We are talking infrastructure this week, some of the problems we see out there on the road, maybe ways to better deal with them, get involved, educate the public about some of the situations that we deal with. We actually said goodbye to Granny during the break. She will be joining Larry and Angie Baum for Taillights here at the top of the hour for Taillights with the Bombs. So she had to go get ready for that. Thank you for joining us tonight there, Granny. We always appreciate you being on the show. Ken Freeman has called in and will be joining us a little bit. And this topic that we're going on tonight, we're going to blame it on Ken, because him and I were talking earlier this week about infrastructure and some things going on out there. And he said this would be, something we should bring up about ways we can deal with it on the road and things like that. I'm going to mention this a couple times during the show. About a year or so ago, we had the filmmakers who did a great video that you can find on YouTube called Be Prepared to Stop. MJ and Jennifer were on talking with Shelley on her afternoon show about that and why they made it. And it's a great beginning thing for infrastructure. If you have friends, family, anybody who really doesn't understand infrastructure for our highways, it's a great thing to just kind of explains it and the importance of it, and how if we don't start spending more money, we're going to have even bigger problems than we're facing. Hey, Jerry, let's come over to you here for a minute. You've been out here for a while on the roads. I'm going to ask you a similar question that we did to Granny. Do you think, if you look back over your years of driving, do you think roads are getting better, worse, about the same? What's some of your thoughts on that? Because I know you've driven from coast to coast.
Tom, actually, that's kind of a difficult question, because I came over the road full time in like 1966. Most of the interstates are only partially finished. We had to run the old roads across Pennsylvania, New York State, New England, all that. Mountain roads, there was no shoulders, they were narrow, 10-12% grades on some of those down through the Smokies and all that. We didn't have engine brakes. But I would say once the interstates got open, they continue to get better. And actually, they have a wear-out cycle, too. You got to expect that. So almost every one of the states, Pennsylvania used to be bad. Indiana, like Granny was talking, the sections of New York State Thruway were terrible at one time, but then they come along and they upgrade them. Now, most people even run in the old 2 lanes. You have to get off run the 2 lanes. Now you got paved shoulders. You got a fog line on there where you can actually see the right shoulder where it begins and ends. Even the old U.S. highways have been upgraded a lot. A lot of the really seriously bad downhill grades have been kind of bypassed now. I could take you across old 22 and 322 and 40 in Pennsylvania. We had to stop at the top of the mountain before even starting down.
Oh, yeah.
The roads are so steep. In fact, old US 40, before you get into Claysburg coming out of Maryland one time, you had to stop twice on that mountain.
Would that be US 40 or 30, Jerry?
40. Now, there was US 30, 30 was real bad too. We ran 22 and 30 a lot. You take old Ship Mountain over there, and we had 100-mile-an-hour mountain. You had Tuscarora, where you had to stop at the top before starting down. You crawled down these mountains. We didn't have engine brakes. And coming into Claysburg, we didn't run that a lot. That was old US 40 coming out of Maryland, actually. And on that mountain there, because you came right down dead center in the middle of town at the red lights. And you had to stop twice on that mountain to make sure you weren't losing your brakes before you started down the second time. Then you got to Wallace, Idaho. That was one of the last sections of interstate actually completed in the whole country. Come off Lookout Mountain. That used to be old US something or other. I forget what it was. And when you got to the bottom of that long downhill before it was even interstate, you had to come to a complete stop at the bottom of the mountain and make a right turn to go down through town. So if you want to measure as far back in the road with my dad at the 50, so, it's a whole lot better. But the fact is, it needs repairs from time to time. It needs to be upgraded. It needs to be maintained. Now, in my last 10, 12 years in the road, I had my own authority. I pretty much focused on just running the Northwest. Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Montana, Utah, so on and so forth. And I pretty much, except for Atlanta, didn't even go east of Interstate 71 or 65. So I avoided all the Northeast. It just wasn't worth it anymore, in my opinion. But the nice thing about the Northwest, it's a whole different culture of people out there. This is hard to believe, but it really is the truth. When you see the signs up there, let's say going into Ellsburg, Washington, and for the Columbia River, there was construction for a while. And there'd be signs, right lane closed, something like that. And even west of Ellsburg, one whole summer that was down to one lane. For some reason, the people up there in Oregon, Washington, Montana, when they see a lane is going to be closed, they automatically move over into the left lane. A mile or so before you get to where it's only one lane, nobody even passes you on the right. It's the darndest thing to see. But it was predictable. And so the Northwest is very easy to drive that way. Washington, Oregon, those people won't fight you in traffic. If they can see you need to move over lane, you put your signal on, they'll say, slow down, let you over. So really, that's far different. I was raised in New Jersey, by the way, right on the New Jersey-Pennsylvania line. So I know how cantankerous they can be up east like that. And that's why I quit running California. It was so crazy. So many near accidents. Something, this accident, and this accident, all in one trip. It had been head-on collisions. I'd have avoided them, but I was right alongside of them. I said, why am I even down here? So, he takes his own robber. So I just stayed pretty much around the Northwest. But the highways have gotten a lot better, let's say the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But they're going to wear out. And you're going to have all these other problems when they wear out and need to be rebuilt. Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that now. And I think one of the things that should concern drivers, and that's one of the reasons I'm kind of bringing up that whole Corpus Christi bridge. I mean, it's being built and they already found major deficiencies in it. Without throwing our good friends in Memphis under the bus too much, there were some deficiencies when that new bridge there on I-40 was built that was missed. And a lot of it was because they didn't have the technology at the time to know there was a problem with the materials. But in a lot of the inspections from there, somehow or another, some major issues got missed, and that's a big problem. But fortunately, they were able to catch some of these problems down in Corpus. But we're talking a bridge that's in excess of $800 million. Let's just round it up and call it $1 billion. How do you make that many major mistakes? And why I think this is so important to be talking about tonight and frightening is the Highway Administration just increased the bridge inspection intervals. We've had bridges collapse around the country and things like that. So that's something that I think like you said, Jerry, there's a life cycle to these things. We already have bridges and highways that have major failing or at least, C's and D grades, if not worse. So, yeah, I think that's something that we as drivers need to be getting more riled up about. And speaking to our congressmen, our state representatives, all this other stuff, and saying, hey, we pay all this money in taxes and road use and this and that. We need these roads safe, particularly if you want your, supplies, your toilet paper delivered.
Yeah, no doubt I agree with you. I don't know how much I listen because, we've got the best politicians money can buy. So, they're listening to one that contributes the most money, I guess. I don't know. I've never been able to figure that out. But that's
there's some of that, but I think the other thing that plays a role in there, and a lot more people from both sides of the aisle are saying this, we need to start getting more involved in the elections, even for minor things, local elections, regional elections. Get out there and vote. I know as drivers, that's not always easy, with mail-in ballots or this, that, or the other thing, absentee ballots if you're out on the road. But you know what? If we vote, if we start, listening to when OIDA does these calls for actions and things like that on a lot of these issues, and more importantly, just whenever we see things that are problems, get out there, call your congressman, call your state reps, have your friends and families do it. Be that pain in the neck to them. I think that is a way to do that. Hey, Jerry, is there anything else you'd like to say in closing here? Because we're getting some other people calling in tonight, and I want to try to make sure we get through everybody there before we hit the break here in just a minute or so.
No, that's about it, Tom. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate you calling in, Jerry. And as always, you bring in a lot of insight from the good old days when you were talking about some of those roads in Pennsylvania. I've driven some of them, and they have, maybe straightened out a couple of the curves here and there and maybe eased up a few of the grades and put in some shoulders. Yeah, there's still some of those hills, particularly of a winter, if you're going 322, 222, 22. They can be a bit hairy and give you a real appreciation for the interstate. So, if anybody, is like going, oh, they're exaggerating, drive US 30, drive 22 sometime. Yeah, no, he's not exaggerating. But on that note, we're going to hit a break here and we'll be back with more Table Trucking and keep on talking live. Stay tuned.
I'm Hope Savara, your host of the Driver Life Podcast, every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern on tncradio.live.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. I am wearing a black and white shirt, cleverly to introduce a concept called dichotomous thinking. Dichotomous is two colors, black and white. And there are many people who think about issues in black and white. They don't know a gray area. What they typically do is see things as either all or none. They love it or they hate it. Best day ever, worst thing that could happen. Always a sense of catastrophic thinking and defeated. This thing is not going to work. It's terrible. It's also known as rigid thinking. And we have research that people who think rigidly or think dichotomously suffer more from depression and more from anxiety, more suicidal thinking. Why? Because of their inflexibility. One of the hallmark signs of physical health is flexibility. If you take a person who can bend down and touch his toes or her toes without bending the knees, that's a good sign, especially when compared to a person who could barely get past the knees. Well, the same thing's true about thinking. One of the hallmark signs of a healthy person emotionally is their flexibility. They have the ability to roll with the punches. Things don't always go your way in life. But the flexible thinker is able to say, that's okay, we'll work it out. The new restaurant has a 2-hour and 45-minute wait. No, we're not waiting that long. Let's try this other place. The movie we wanted to see, It's sold out. That's all right. We'll catch up to it in a couple of weeks. Let's go see this one. The flexible thinker finds a way to survive. The dichotomous thinker causes issues for self and for others. Practice being a little more flexible. Now I got to change my shirt.
Catch Mind Your Trucking Business Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern with James Rogers, Jamie Irvine, and Tom Kelly. They provide expert advice about starting, operating, and growing a professional trucking business. It's Mind Your Trucking Business on tncradio.live.
And we're back with Keep On Talking Live. I'm your host, Tom Kyrk. We gather each week here around a counter of knowledge like we used to do pre-pandemic at the truck stops and share thoughts, ideas, talk about some of the latest topics of the day. And as everyone can kind of see tonight, we're talking about something that's pretty popular. We got the calls still coming in. You can reach us at 706-TNC-TNC-0. That's 706-862-8620. We're talking infrastructure. We've talked a little bit about the Corpus Christi Bridge and some other things, and we're going to bring Ken Freeman on. Ken and I were talking a little bit earlier this week, and he thought that this would be a good topic in light of Corpus Christi and some other things out there. How are you doing tonight, Ken?
I am good, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I know one of the things I know you wanted to talk about was your thoughts on some of the ways to get around some of the problems that are out there, because rumor has it you found a new detour around the problem, at least new to you.
Well, yeah, it is new to me. I have sat behind traffic, and I saw it again on my way home this trip several times in this construction zone between Nashville, Tennessee, and the Kentucky line there on I-65. There always seems to be somebody getting together in the middle of that, or a truck breaking down or something, and it can back up for 7 or 8 miles in a heartbeat. And I discovered the other day, because I'm stubborn, I will sit in traffic and wait before I try to get off, because I'm in a tank truck, and a lot of times, some of these detour routes are kind of tough. You don't know, especially in areas like that where it's hilly and everything, exactly what you're getting into. But man, if you hit a backup in that area, the very first exit that you can cut over to 31W and go, I guess you could go south too, but I know going north, you can bypass that whole thing. And there was a tremendous backup the other day due to a wreck, and that it had been there for quite some time. And once I hit the exit, it was like 5 minutes to go around. So you can pass that on to anybody, that it could save somebody literally hours. And I'd like to, I'd make a suggestion to other drivers. If you discover something like that, tell as many people as you can. I know we all have other drivers at work, that we drive with or work out of the same terminals that talk on the phone back and forth through the week. Man, tell everybody, spread the word, put it on your Facebook if you want to. But, any little thing like that can certainly be a huge help at times.
It definitely can. I think this is worth throwing out again. One of my favorite get-arounds, if I'm going on I-81 through Virginia, is US 11. And even actually through Pennsylvania, a lot of other places where 11 runs parallel to 81, that can be a pretty good detour around it. Now, don't get me wrong, there's times where if you're out around Harrisburg, there's a couple stretches of it. They don't really like trucks on it. So, you do need to be alert to that and pay attention to any restrictions, on that. But for the most part, US 11 is a pretty good way to get around a lot of those problems. But, like you said, there's a few sections where there could be some grade issues and things like that. So, as always, double check your maps and make sure it's a route that is appropriate for you. I know kind of the question of the evening we're asking everybody here, Ken, is looking back over your career of trucking, do you think roads are getting better, worse, or about the same?
Tom, I have to agree with Jerry. I think we have pretty good road systems for the most part, but they're wearing out. They're going to continue to wear out. And I think it was Granny earlier that commented about some of these road construction projects that felt like they were being milked. You know, I tend to agree with that. I know it's necessary to keep these roads up, but it seems like sometimes they just, it seems like they just go on forever and ever and ever. But
what
overall,
was it? Why?
I tend to think that. Go ahead.
So was it Wyoming or Nebraska that was notorious for their 20-mile construction zones that would last for 5 years? And I think the thing that a lot of people came up with is, wait, the reason they're doing that is because they can charge more for speeding tickets in road construction zones.
I do not doubt that at all.
I'm not saying that is the case, but that theory was definitely proposed by a few different drivers, and that is something that I think is a very realistic possibility. I think you're getting ready to say something there.
No, that is a very good point. It just feels like there's, we've got this huge umbrella that they put quote unquote infrastructure under that can cover lots of different things. And I know there's a lot of money allocated for quote unquote infrastructure. And to me, that leaves a lot of room for a lot of politicians to get their hands in the kitty and make a lot of money. And I don't really know what we're ever going to be able to do about that, because it feels like our only answer is to go to politicians and get their attention and try to get them to help. And to me, and maybe it's just a really cynical view, but it feels like we're asking the fox to guard the hen house. So, just from the low IQ section over here, I don't know what we're going to do about it.
The low IQ section, I don't know if I agree with you on that one, because if so, that means I'm even in the even cheaper seats in that section than you are, but that's a whole nother conversation. But the thing that I'm looking at this is the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We saw during the pandemic when drivers were starting to complain, particularly in Pennsylvania, about the shutting down of rest areas and service plazas for bathrooms and things like that. When the wheels got real squeaky and real loud, real fast, it was amazing how fast politicians starting to jump and react. And I think maybe that's a lesson that can be learned, because, when you look at some of these communities that are getting these money for some of these projects, their communities are getting out there and saying, hey, we need money for X, Y, Z. Even if it is a bridge to nowhere or a bridge that only exclusively rich people will use at a country club, whatever it is. Obviously, there's some corruption there. We can all agree on that. But if we don't start getting a little bit more involved and a little bit, bringing the attention to, hey, there's this problem. You want trucks to do this. Parking's an issue. This is an issue. You're bringing, Tesla's going to start delivering semis this year. That headline just came out here in the last day or two. How are they going to get charged? Where's the power coming from? I think we need to be the voice of reason and just start asking a lot of questions loudly at different forums. Hey, Christine, I'm going to bring you on here real quick before our next break to get you started. Asking you the same basic question. Do you think roads are getting better, worse, or about the same?
I'm gonna go with worse. Kentucky's solution to their infrastructure problem is putting a sign on the road that says right lane rough, use left lane for the next 5 miles.
Yeah.
Instead of actually fixing it, that's their solution.
Well, and I will say I've seen New York do some variations on that. where they wanted the trucks to run in the left lane for a while, because the reason is they wanted the trucks to wear out the left lane. So when they replaced it, all the lanes were completely worn out. I don't really think that's necessarily a solution. If the road's already wearing out, fix it. Novel idea.
Well, if you think about I-65, your major roads in the east, you have I-65, 75, 95, 85, which has got a 20-mile stretch of construction that's been going on for 5 years. Same thing that he said. Exactly. Now, 65, when they did the construction from Nashville and they're going up, they're widening it into 3 lanes. But you couldn't, it says trucks use left lane inside that construction zone, but you couldn't use it. We run these roads so much and do so much damage. I don't think that extending out 5 years worth of construction to generate funds for municipalities is the solution. Fix it. Get it done. I mean, Texas has got some of the best back roads in the country. Absolutely beautiful. And they're back roads.
Oh, yeah.
Louisiana I-10 kills us. It kills us.
Here's one of the things that amazes me. Sorry, Christine, I'm going to interrupt here real quick before we go, because we got to go to a break, and we'll come back to you after the break, and we'll bring on Huck as well here. But the thing is, I was having a conversation a while back on the station on I think it was the morning show, and they were saying, where do you think some of the best roads in the country are? And I says, I got to say Texas. And the guys who lived in Texas were surprised. I says, you've got certain stretches here and there that are rough. Don't get me wrong. But by and large, compared to a lot of the rest of the country, they're pretty well maintained. They're reasonably smooth. I know a lot of drivers that like taking I-10, I-20 across going to California because it's smoother than parts of Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arizona, et cetera, because parts of those, especially if you're driving tanker, you got a co-driver. Good luck. I mean, it's brutal, but we got to take a quick break here. We're going to be back for our final segment right after this. Stay tuned to Keep On Talking Live. We'll be right back.
It's Truckers Life Radio from TFC Global with your host, Ron Frazier. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Here we're helping drivers as they travel life's highway. I love that. The spiritual side, drivers face a lot out on the road. Truckers Life Radio digs in on the spiritual and moral questions that drivers face on a daily basis. You don't want to miss it. Every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
This blog is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. The dark side of the long-haul trucker lifestyle. A trucker's lifestyle can be a gloomy place at times. The long days, stressful work environments, and loneliness have major effects on a driver's life. The dark side of the long-haul trucker's lifestyle is often overlooked and not addressed. As a result, many drivers suffer from mental and physical health problems. Before entering the trucking industry, long-haul truck drivers need to be aware of the good and bad that comes with this lifestyle. It's difficult to stay healthy. Being in good health is a rare thing for long-haul truck drivers. Life on the road doesn't give drivers many opportunities to live a healthy lifestyle. When you spend the majority of your trucking career on the go, your food options are limited. Although taking an exit to get McDonald's may seem like an easy solution or the easiest option, eating fast food for every meal for weeks at a time can cause serious health issues. Obesity is one of the most common health issues in truckers. If you don't watch your diet and exercise, you could end up developing a serious health problem. Say goodbye to a regular sleep schedule. The trucking industry runs 24/7, 365, so having a regular sleep schedule is rare for long-haul drivers. The loading and unloading times are often never the same. At times, the driver will deliver a load at 2 a.m. one day and 1 p.m. the next day. In addition to the inconsistent load times, drivers can make multiple deliveries a day. This creates a lot of stress on the body and leaves the driver operating on a few hours of sleep. If you're struggling with getting enough sleep and staying awake on the road, check out our blog, 5 Easy Steps to Help Truckers Stay Awake While Driving. You'll feel lonely. It's not uncommon for long-haul truck drivers to feel lonely while on the road. Drivers have very little face-to-face interactions while working on the road. While this may seem like a good thing for some drivers, it can start to develop depressive symptoms. Depression is a common side effect of trucking. To help avoid feeling depressed on the road, talk to your friends and family on the phone at least once a day. As a long-haul truck driver, you can often feel like you're missing out on your loved one's life. Communicating with them daily will help you feel less lonely. It's hard on your relationships. Long-haul trucking can strain your relationship with your significant other. Being away from your loved one for weeks at a time is never easy. In addition to being apart, many drivers struggle with balancing their work life and personal life. Relationships already take a lot of work, but long-distance relationships take even more work. When you become a long-haul truck driver, it's important to be willing to put an extra effort into your relationship. Some quick tips to having a healthy relationship as a long-haul truck driver. Communicate daily. Spend as much time together as possible when you're not working. Consider therapy. Avoid arguments. Trust each other. This blog has been brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
Hey drivers, did you hear music on tncradio.live that you really liked? Or maybe you heard us interview an author of a book you'd like to read or listen to. You can get the books, music, and other products you hear about by going to our website at www.tncradio.live and clicking on the shopping cart.
And we're back here on the counter of knowledge. We're here on Keep On Talking Live. I'm your host, Tom Kyrk. We're gathered around the counter of knowledge where the conversation's hot, the apple pie's lousy, and the coffee is cold. But hey, we still have a lot of fun anyways. We said goodbye to Christine and Ken during the breaks. We got just a few minutes, and we've got a first-time caller with us tonight. How are you doing tonight, Huck?
Hey, I am doing well. I've started a new job and learning the ropes at our largest facility, and everything's going better.
Hey, that's good to hear. If anybody thinks that voice may sound familiar, he's a longtime listener and a caller from America's Trucking Network. Do you want to catch everybody up maybe in about 30 seconds as to what's going on in your life, Huck?
Well, I had been signed on with an LTL carrier, XPO, and I unfortunately lost that due to a industrial accident. Nobody was hurt, but they weren't really impressed. And so I signed on with Stoughton Trucking Manufacturing, and I am doing yard work right now. I enjoy the LTL work, so I may go back to that. Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought that name sounded familiar.
Yep. It's a really slick operation what they have.
Excellent. We'll have to maybe talk about that a little bit sometime if they don't mind, a little bit about what goes on there. But anyways, a little bit of time we got left tonight, you've kind of heard some of the conversation, so I'm going to throw out the question of the evening to everybody. Do you think roads are getting better, worse, or about the same?
I would say there is probably a middle of the road status quo with a lean to getting better.
Okay, so we've had so far tonight 1 vote for they're getting worse, 2 votes for they're getting better, 1 vote for 50-50, and I'm going to throw you into 50-50 category. So
no, I would lean more to getting better.
Getting better.
Yep.
Okay, so we have 3 getting better, a 50-50, and no one. And the thing is, I'm probably going to lean towards the no myself, not just to be contrarian to everybody else, but some of it is I think, well, they are getting better in a lot of ways. The bad problems are getting worse, and I don't think anybody's got a solution. Right. We don't have a ton of time here, Huck, so I'm going to ask you one quick question. If you could wave your magic wand, what is the one thing you'd like to see improved on the roads?
The only thing I would change, and they do listen in southern states, when they grind it up, there's a machine that will grind it up, cut it, grind it up, and relay it in the same motion. And when they do that, they use ground up tires mixed in with the asphalt. I would make that a national priority. Are you there?
Yep. Sorry, I just had a momentary tech glitch there, but I think that's a great idea. I know Europe does something similar on a lot of their roads, and I've heard other drivers throw that out. And I hate to cut you short, Huck, but I hope we can talk to you more here on future shows because we're coming up on the top of the hour. We got tail lights with bombs and Granny coming up. We've also got Anderson Banker with Clutch Time Sports coming up. But one of the things Ken Freeman wanted me to bring up, and I think this is a good point that wraps everything up. You know, drivers, we've been talking about getting out there, being more active, talking to your senators, your state representatives, anybody and everybody you can to about the condition of our roads and the problems that we're seeing. At the same time, educate your family and friends as to what's going on. Encourage them to drive more safely in construction zones and the problems that we as trucks face, and encourage them to tell their friends to be more aware and a little more courteous. Also, there's that great YouTube video out there that explains infrastructure for beginners. Be prepared to stop. You can look it up there. That's a great resource to get people talking about this. Do they have all the answers? No. Do I 100% agree with every issue they raise in there? Of course not. But it's a great place to start a conversation. And that's really what this is all about tonight. So on that note, thank you for joining us. Flo's telling me it's time to get out of the diner so that the bombs can come on in. So everybody, thank you for joining us. Come on back next week, and we'll be here more with Keep On Talking Live from the Counter of Knowledge. See you next week.
Drink, then I'm headed home. One turns to two, and two turns to four, and next thing you know, she's two or three more. Up on the bar, gone too far. But she thinks she's a rock and roll star. Hands in the air, singing those Skinner songs. Train wreck, whiskey on a bed, tangled hair ain't gonna bed. Ripping a hose, last night's clothes. Still smells like cigarette smoke. Broken heel, one earring left. Where the other one's at is anyone's guess. Last night's fun is the next day's mess. That girl's a train wreck. That girl's a train till her coffee breaks. She'll do one more thing and then she might take a 15-minute nap on the break room couch. She's got 2 new messages on her phone from some guy who says his name's T-Bone. Lord knows what that's about. Just seems to happen every time that she goes out. That girl's a train wreck, whiskey on a bed, tangled hair ain't gonna bed. Ripping a hose, last night's clothes. Still smells like cigarette smoke. Broken heel, one earring left. Where the other one's at is anyone's guess. Last night's fun is the next day's next.